Richard Skipper celebrates. Every show is a celebration. Each show, Richard delivers the artists you love, showcasing what makes them unique. Never gossipy. The antidote to a sometimes hectic world. Now, here's your host, Richard Skipper.
Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to Richard Skipper Celebrates. This is the show in which I celebrate artists and their body of worth. And I've got a very good artist to celebrate tonight. I'll talk a little bit about her in just a moment. But I'd like to remind everyone that today marks 239 days since our theater shut down here in New York. And of course, that's having a ripple effect across the country. Theaters, concerts, every performing arts venue has pretty much shut down due to COVID. And I want to take a moment to remember all the people and to celebrate all of the people who are out of work tonight. And it's not just the people you see on stage. It's the people behind the scenes. It's the vendors. It's the box office people. It's the ushers. It takes a village to bring entertainment to our homes. And unfortunately, we're not able to appear live, but we are here tonight virtually, thanks to StreamYard and social media and everything. I'm very excited about tonight's guest. I've known Elaine Ballace for quite some time. As a matter of fact, we were Facebook friends for quite some time. And our mutual friend, Rosa Puzo, who was always putting a little bug in my ear, said, you should have Elaine Ballace on your show. Now, when I first booked Elaine, little did we know the shape that the United States would be in tonight. This is not going to be a political show. And if we do get political, it's only to entertain you. I want the next hour to be a diversion from everything else that's going on in the world. Don't think red, don't think blue, think pink. Because that is Elaine Ballace. And before Elaine speaks, I want to say that I looked up the word camp. There are two types of camp. There's one type of camp that I align to, and that's the one we're going to talk about. And then there's another type of camp, and that's going and being in a tent and being out in the woods somewhere. No, not for either one of us. Not for either one of us. The word camp first appeared in the Oxford Dictionary in 1909, and it means over the top, ostentatious, exaggerated. I think both of us are a little bit of that. And I want to thank you, Elaine, for being here. And before we jump into your life and career, which has been amazing, for those of you who do not know, I think that the only part of show business that Elaine has not done is probably sumo wrestling. And I'm sure that there's some sumo wrestling in her background as well. Elaine, before we start, I want to ask you, how are you really in the midst of this?
I am so excited to be here. I made my own set. It's very, shall we say, public access.
I love it. Now, you live in
curtain. I want to get one of those.
Well, I'll make sure that you get one. Don't be surprised when it shows up.
Is that my swag bag?
That'll be in your swag bag.
That'll be my swag bag.
I want to ask you, first of all, how are you in the midst of this crazy world we find ourselves in?
Well, which is the only thing I'm going to talk about, because when I put it online last night and was telling everyone to watch, I said, we aren't going to talk about the election except for one thing, which is why my book is written and out there now. Because I don't think anybody could write this stuff. I don't think anyone could dream it up. Maybe they can, I don't know. And that was one of the reasons. At first, when I started doing my book, it was mainly just kind of a joke and fun and, you know, kind of tongue in cheek and a great stocking stuffer for anything or a gift. But then COVID hit. And then it was like, and then the unrest, the civil unrest. And now this. And I said, this is the perfect time for everyone to write his or her own story, because who would believe it? I mean, if you were telling someone in 50 years, what happened? They go, oh, come on. It's like your parents who always, walked to school in the snow and shoveled, 4 feet of snow. And this is the whole purpose. So this is the only thing. This is as political as it's going to get.
No,
I want it in your words, and you can pass it to other people, and it'll always be around in history, and it'll be in your writing, so the historians can't change it. People will know what you, Richard Skipper, were going through during these crazy times.
No, it's funny. I read a quote today, and I'm going to screw it up. I'm paraphrasing tremendously, but it's a quote from Winston Churchill. And he said, history will be kind to me because I'm writing my own history.
There you go. There you go.
Well, that's a very
this is perfect, for the book. And that's the only thing I'm going to, only thing political, because I think everyone is up to here with all that's going on.
I mean, we're not going to talk about the election, but I do want to ask you, are you political at all? And if you are, were you political prior to this administration?
Well, yes and no. Okay. I don't think I was more locally political. In other words, when I became the caregiver for my mom, and I saw things that were going on and where we lived, and my mom would always, turn to me to say, well, can't you do something? Can't you do something? So mine were mainly like human interest stories, like, fighting with insurance companies or whatever, Medicare, for trying to help seniors get better care that the insurance would cover. For example, it will never cover cough medicine. And that's something that seniors really need, because any cold or any respiratory problem that they have, it could easily go to pneumonia. And so I was always fighting those battles, and fighting doctor battles prior to that for my father, and, hospital battles and treatments and care, and what, an advocate for the patients. So in that sense, yes, it's political, but it's not like, it's more human interest stories, which is really kind of what I'm more interested in.
But don't you find, Elaine, that that's where most people are coming from? I think that people come out of politics based on their needs and what they're, for the most part,
right.
Or other people have other needs and reasons to go into it. We won't talk about those because we're all about celebrating.
No. I'm just, and so I really learned a lot politically, because it started with just my local city council, fighting them and seeing what goes on and how they behave. And trust me, you don't have to go to Washington. It can be right in your own backyard. I mean, it's all the same.
It is.
It's all the same. It doesn't matter. So I think that's one of the reasons when they would say to me, well, why don't you run for office? And it's like, no, because I'm very passionate about the causes that I pick. And I don't know that it would be, I could be that politically open to things, because I'm so passionate. And I said, no, I think I'll just fight with you.
Now, I want to go back to your backdrop, because you said it was public access television. Now, when I first came to New York in 1979, and I lived in Manhattan, and I discovered late night public access. For those of you who do not know, this was before cable really existed. And if, like what we're doing right now with the internet, if you had the access to a studio and you could broadcast that show out, you had a public access show. Now I know.
Did. Did you see my show in New York? It was on. There was, I think it was. Is it Manhattan Neighborhood or something?
Manhattan Neighborhood.
Right. I was very popular from what they told me there, and so I did that, and I did it here. Hence the Camp Elaine, which is actually, as I say, it's class trash over the top, And public access was so much fun.
Oh my God.
everybody a chance to do something. And the campier you were, the better, the more people liked you. And I must say, it's so funny because I used to get recognized more from doing public access, because I did it in LA, all over LA, and then you could just send the tapes. They used to call it leapfrogging or whatever, and you could send the tapes wherever. So I mainly did it in LA and New York. And even when my show ended and stuff, they were still asking me, do you mind if we keep your tapes? We still want to air them. They do so well here. So I said, of course, I mean, now it's a dinosaur because they were 3/4 inch.
Well, the funny thing, and I'm getting a really bad echo from, it sounds like a monster coming through. So I don't know if
From
anyone
mine?
else, yes, I don't know if anyone else is hearing that. I think the planets are lined up very funny tonight. So anything may happen here. This is our own Manhattan Access show. But Elaine, did you live in New York at that time, or were you doing things in LA and sending them here?
I was sending them, yes. I'm a native Californian, born, raised, lived here all my life, except for 1 year when I was back east in graduate school. But the highlight of my life with New York was when I was skating, and I got to skate at Madison Square Garden. And so a Cali girl skating at Madison Square Garden was very impressive to me,
Okay.
anyway.
So I want to go back. You were born in California. I want to know what your home life was like. I know that you started out as a young skater, and that was your first, I guess, foray into show business.
Yes.
But tell us a little bit about your parents. And do you have brothers and sisters? And do they have an artistic bent as well?
Well, my mother was a professional violinist, but she gave it up when she got married because I guess in those days, she didn't feel she could do both. And I had an older sister, and she is, I would say she's very domestic and very creative. Like she can sew and, everything matches perfectly. She'd be very ashamed of this, but, I think it's cute. And
Well, this
like
is
one
my
time,
style. I love this.
and like one time she came over and she goes, "Oh, I can't believe that, your what did she say? Oh, your napkins and your placemats don't match perfectly." I go, "They're lucky they have a place." I mean, it's things like that. It's stuff that I couldn't worry about. They're lucky. It's like I tell people, I go, you could eat off my floors. As a matter of fact, I recommend it because that's where most of the food is.
Well, where's Oreo tonight, by the way?
I was looking myself. I don't know. I guess and he even took a bath, and I told him he was going to be on TV, and he was here and he left Oreo. We'll have to find him. I don't know where he is.
Oreo will make an appearance before the show is over.
I know.
So, were your parents very supportive of you wanting to pursue? Did you want to pursue a career as an ice skater?
I knew I wanted to be in show business from the time I was 3 years old. And according to my parents, which I don't totally remember, but it sounds like something I would have done. Whenever I went to my grandparents or whenever there was a family get together, I produced all the shows. Everyone had to be in a variety show. So I was producing it like 3 or 4. So I knew it had to be show business. And I did love skating, but I wanted it to be more than just skating. Skating is, I will say, the greatest discipline I think I ever had. And I think I've carried it throughout my life, whether it was with school or acting or anything. And the other thing that I learned in skating was you learn the tricks that are going to get the best ovation. Because I turned pro when I was 8, when there was a big difference between amateur and pro. So I was always competing for the applause. Ta-da! And I skated to applause for years. And so anyway, they I'm trying to fix this so that it'll go right. Let's see. Feathers everywhere. So I took that same discipline because it was you and the ice. And of course, it was always the ice's fault if you didn't do it right. First you blame the ice, then you blame whomever else is around or your blades or something like that. And lastly, it's you, which is actually probably the first problem. But
well, I'll share a little trivia tidbit for you if you don't already know this. Liza Minnelli said that when she was a young child, she wanted to be an ice skater. And that was her dream until she saw Bye Bye Birdie on stage. And then when she saw Bye Bye Birdie, everything suddenly changed for her. And she really wanted to be a dancer, more than a singer, actress. She wanted to be a dancer in the chorus on Broadway. What was the moment for you? Or do you recall what it was about this business that you wanted to be a part of?
Well, I think, well, at 3 or 4, I'm not sure I even knew, I just knew that I wanted to perform.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just wanted to perform and entertain. And I think more than anything, I love to make people laugh. So but not through stand up, just through entertainment.
Did you ever make people laugh through your skating?
Oh God, I hope not. Well, actually I did once, and this is a great story. Rip Taylor, we were doing a show in Palm Desert, and I saw Rip Taylor, and it was so funny because the ceilings were very low, and we had these big hats. And I went by, and my hat I didn't like duck enough because I was looking at him. And so afterwards, I mean, I did my solo was fine because I didn't have a hat on, but this was in a production number. And afterwards, he came running back and said, "I just have to meet that girl. She is so great. She's so funny out there." And it was like, oh no, but that was, I think, the only time, hopefully, that, they laughed. The rest of the time, you want them to love you.
So you did have a career as a professional ice skater.
Oh yeah, from the time I was 8 years old. And I was skating, and I was asked to do some shows, and then shortly after that I started doing commercials. And my dad really didn't want me going on the road until I was 18. And he just felt that I should be in school and everything. And by then I wanted to enjoy football. Mm-hmm. So I went to USC where they had great football at the time, And
well, before we get there, I want to go back to the commercials for a moment. Okay. When you started doing the commercials, how did that start for you? And what was the first really successful commercial that
it was for you? Yeah. The commercial actually was one a day vitamins, and that I got because a woman at the rink saw me, and she was an agent, and her daughter was a skater. And she asked my parents, and my father figured, well, that'll kind of do both. So then I had the best of both worlds, and that was really fun. And I think at that age, it didn't really matter to me that much. I just loved performing, and I thought if people would be happy, that made me happy, if I could make them happy. And so I think it wasn't until I was older and maybe even out of college that it was like, okay, 50-50. I mean, I was so devoted to both. And then I knew the accomplishments that I made in skating, and I knew what I could do. And I wanted to achieve everything and more in acting. Mm-hmm. That I could achieve in skating, because I knew, I was in the Guinness Sports Record book for most revolutions per second in a spin. And so I knew the things that I could do, and I knew if you worked really hard, you could get better at it. Didn't mean you would be more successful, but people could see you would be better. So when I really wanted to act, I threw myself into acting the same way I did skating. I was taking lessons 2 and 3 times a week. I went to every class I could go to, everything, because I wanted to be an expert at everything. So I think, again, the discipline came from skating.
So Elaine, turn your speakers down just a little bit, because I'm getting a lot of an echo coming back my way. I've been told from others that they are not hearing it, but I'm hearing it on this end. So,
Okay,
Elaine,
is that better?
That's much better. That's
Okay.
So, Elaine, I know that you're a comedian, obviously, and but do you prefer doing film or do you prefer the experience of being in front of an audience? And when did that part of your career begin to happen? When you started appearing in front of an audience? And there's also another area of your life that I want to delve into as well, and
Uh-oh.
that's the fact that you covered sports. And
Yes.
you were one of the few women that did so at that time.
At that time, yeah. It was okay. Let's see. The first thing, which one do you want to cover first?
Well, let's talk. You did commercials, and then you started delving into doing live performances. Did you do a career in doing live theater?
In LA, there's not a whole lot of live theater. It's more television or film. And I mean, there are stage performances, and I did perform at the Pasadena Playhouse, which was a great experience. But again, it had so much history that who wouldn't want to perform there, you know? And I even studied there when they reopened their classes in the 90s. So I was able to take some classes and study there as well to learn about stage and theater. But I think by that time, I enjoyed film and TV more only because I had done so many skating shows. So it wasn't that much difference other than, I guess, if I went out there with my skates on and guards and walked around the theater. But actually, I did that, not with the skate guards, but whenever I did a play, I would do it the same way I would train for, like, if I were doing a show, and I would get to the theater really early and I would just walk the stage knowing where all my lines were and stuff like that. So again, you know, the discipline and skating really carried through in life. So I enjoyed it, but I think I enjoy film and TV. I don't know. I can't say more, but in a way, because you meet so many more people. You know,
we have a viewer who's watching tonight, James Kong, and he says that he misses you at the Hollywood Museum event.
Oh, hi, James. I'm glad you were able to watch.
Can you tell us a little bit about those events and how those began?
Oh, well, Danelle Dadigan bought the Max Factor building. Have you been there since?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Harlan Bowl is a very dear friend of mine, and he does a lot of events there.
A lot of events, and he is like the greatest person. I mean, I adore him.
The person in Hollywood, as far as I'm concerned.
And he represented somebody that you also know very well, Carol Channing.
Yes. Well, I met him. I met him through Carol. I'll tell you a very quick story about Harlan. I had heard Carol talk about Harlan for a long time. And then I expected, when I first met him, to be an older, stodgy Hollywood type from the 1950s. And then this guy shows up, who, as you know, gorgeous, handsome guy. And when he introduced himself, he says, "Richard, it's great to meet you. I'm Harlan Bowl." I practically fell backwards.
He's really wonderful. I mean, I can't say enough good things about Harlan. He's just terrific. And at the Hollywood Museum, they have so many different events. In other words, they have the lobby series where they had the ladies from Knots Landing. They had Betty Davis's. Hers was more of a book thing, though. Betty Davis's assistant, she wrote a book about Betty Davis. Richard Pryor Jr. was at the lobby series, but again, for a book series. I adore him. Adore Richard. And Dawn Wells, she was there, and they also had her for a book series. Then in the bigger ones, they had I Dream of Jeannie. That was like an incredible night. I think it was her 88th birthday. Wow. And also, do you know that she can still get into her Jeannie costume? I mean, we're all jealous.
That she could still get into her Genie bottle.
I I mean, she looked terrific,
She
and
does.
everybody was there for that one. And then they had the Pointer Sisters, which I loved, and it
Mm,
was so sad when Bonnie passed. I
yes,
mean,
yes.
I felt like I lost a family member. I told her I was the other Pointer Sister. She just didn't know it, but I can't sing a note.
Now, Rosa Puzo, our friend that we mentioned earlier, has a question. What was your first major role?
I guess the first thing I ever did was the commercials through skating. And then Welcome Back, Cotter, and let's see what other ones. Then through that it was like General Hospital, Days of Our Lives, and then I guess my favorite was when I got to finally convince Mel Brooks to let me be in his movies. He kept saying, no. I go, I'm doing it. I'm showing up. So finally, because he knew me as a skater. And then the first thing he said to me goes, now, okay, when you come on the set, it was for Spaceballs. And he goes, when you come on the set, you do not talk about skating. So I said, okay. So I go there and I didn't even say a word about anything to anybody, but they all knew by the time I got there. And it was so funny. So we're on the set and Mel is bragging about what a great skater I am. And this was when I was still doing both. And I just said, Mel, you said not to talk about skating. He goes, this is my set. I can talk about whatever I want.
Good for him. Now, you bring up a very interesting point that I want to ask you, and I'm very curious with all the artists that I interview. But in your own career and the trajectory of your career, did you have an agent or a manager early on? And if not, how proactive were you or are you in terms of mapping out the career that you have?
I would have to say the woman, when I first started doing commercials, she was an agent, but I mean, it wasn't like I sought her out, she sought me out. And I would have to say, in skating, my coach pretty much managed me early on. I mean, until probably my 20s. And then he still managed some, but not a lot because by then he was kind of done doing, both. But he managed some of the skaters that he taught, and which is sort of common now in skating. It's all very different. But I always kind of say it was probably I who just threatened everybody. You better I'll just show up.
Now,
So I kind of give it as like, okay, I think God was my agent because he and I talk a lot.
that's good. We do too. And going back to an earlier question, how did the sports casting begin for you?
Just a real passion and understanding it from an athlete's point of view and a fan point of view. And I was always fascinated, especially with football, because to me it's kind of like life, because sometimes you run, sometimes you pass, sometimes you fumble, sometimes you intercept. So I always felt like football was like life, you know. And the better players were the ones who just never gave up. If there was time on the clock, they were there. And I was really impressed, and I wanted to know really, like, because skating is such an individual sport, I was more interested in knowing how they play as a team,
Oh, I like
or
that.
if the better players, how they fit in, or, the lesser players, the lesser known players, not that they were lesser players, but lesser known players, how did they fit in and how did they feel? And the things that I was really interested in were, what did they do? Like, in other words, like say in football, for example, I the first real game I think that I got to cover was a Denver Bronco game in Denver. And so of course I'm small, blonde, and nobody knew me, right? So they all, like, my initiation is they're all gonna come out of the locker room naked. and not even put on a towel or anything. So someone said, well, what did you do? And I mean, I know there were a lot of women who were offended by that. I said, well, to me, it was eye candy. I was staring,
I'll share a funny story with you, and you're going to laugh out of this. Years ago, I used to perform. A lot of people know this as Carol Channing, and I was booked at a nudist event.
Oh my goodness!
And the entire audience was nude, and I was performing for them. And someone told Carol that I was doing this, and she's, "Isn't that wonderful? He knows whether they like him or not."
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, he had a very good, wicked sense of humor. You also told me when we spoke about a week or so ago that when you first started getting these gigs, I'm going to call them, and you started showing up to interview these sports guys, at first they didn't take you seriously because you were a woman, but you knocked that door down and you broke that glass ceiling, as they say. How were you able to do that?
I think just by being myself, and I didn't ask the typical questions, so they had to listen. In other words, how did you feel then? I mean, they probably didn't even know how they felt then. But I think one of the best ones was Reggie Jackson. And when I went over to him and he goes, what do you want? And I go, an interview. And he goes, all right. And I was like, oh, that was easy. And so, but the cameraman was young and so impressed that it was Reggie Jackson, like a childhood hero. And so we're doing the interview and I couldn't understand half of what he was saying. So when I would ask him questions and he goes, well, first I want to ask you, how did you get this job? Just because you're a woman? I go, no, I got it because I'm blonde. And then he didn't know what to say. So then he goes, well, do you think I should go blonde? I go, I don't know. Do you want to? And so we were doing I was asking him actually about the fans choosing it for the All-Star game and how he felt. Did he feel it was fair? Was it a good representation? And stuff like that. We were talking. And he went off on some tangent that I couldn't even figure out what he was saying. So I said, so in other words, he goes, no, use my words. And I go, okay, let me see if I've got your words right. If not, we'll just use your words verbatim, but let me see if I'm getting the aha syndrome. So I did it. And he looks at me afterwards and he says, I like your words better. So I turned and said, not bad for a blonde.
Good for you.
And so he kind of knew. And then he goes, well, let's hurry up. I go, where are you going? You've got a game to play, like you can't leave the stadium. So you might as well just stand here. And it turned out to be with Reggie Jackson, you had to get permission from both teams. And in order to play the interview, and they both called and said, that was the nicest interview he's ever given. And I think it was because I really came from a fan base as an athlete. And I was also curious to know how other athletes, perform and how they train and off season.
Past that stereotype that women don't know that much about sports. Don't you think we've gotten past that?
Well, I think now, but I think also the problem is that many of them are either fed the questions, so they're pretty much, most of the athletes, what I found even was that most of the athletes figured, okay, they're going to get these questions. And I would never ask those questions. I got more to the human interest. And the one question I did ask all of them was, all the men, I go, if you had a daughter or you do have a daughter, would you want her to marry like a pro football player? And unequivocally, they all said no.
Oh.
No.
And did they give you a reason why?
Well, I think because they knew who they were. But I think that they wanted their daughters to have more stability in their lives, to be with men who had more stability, maybe. And they just, I don't know. Part of the thing, I think maybe a father-daughter thing where they don't want to be compared to, they want to be the hero in their daughters' lives.
Now, who are your role models, Elaine? I mean, you went into this business on your own. You have forged out this career for yourself. Who were and who are your role models?
Well, I think Lucille Ball, of course.
Mhm.
I mean, I remember during vacation or, summers, watching I Love Lucy and then going to the rink to do, to skate or something. And I just loved it. Mary Tyler Moore, I loved her. I thought she was great. Doris Day, of course. All the fun romantic comedies, that were on the big screen. So I think all of those people, I really, who wouldn't want to be any of them, I mean, like Lucy was always getting into trouble or something. Here I am, So I think that was really, I really liked that. And I thought, that is so much fun. And the thing that I think I took away from all of it was I felt that they were having fun. And I know when I taught skating, I used to tell my kids all the time, I go, listen, when you go out to skate a program, I go, some you're going to win that you don't deserve, and some you're not going to win that you deserved. I mean, that's just life. But you've got to go out there and have fun, because if you're not having fun, no one else is. And I said, if you go out nervous, the judges are going to be nervous. The people are going to be nervous watching you. So what fun is that? So when you go out there, you have fun. And I think I've pretty much taken that to heart too. It's like,
Now, and as if that
they're having
wasn't
fun.
enough, you also have a degree in psychology.
I know. I figured maybe I could find out why. Why am I in this business? But I always tell people it's easier to get in the business than out of the business, because once it's in you, there are no there's like Alcoholics Anonymous or Cocaine Anonymous or one of those, but there is no Acting Anonymous. I mean, once it's there, it's there. It's you're branded for life.
Lawrence said to me that being in this business is the greatest elixir in the world. She said, the more you get, the more you want. The issue, however, is whether or not the audience wants it. Do you think that you could ever walk away from this business?
No. I mean, I think I couldn't ever walk away. As a matter of fact, during COVID, I started a channel, with kind of Oreo, and we would do COVID little videos or something like that, trying to figure out if, the eye makeup mask matched the mask or whatever, but or how people were doing that day, or fighting with my scale, my bathroom scale. So we kind of have a thing like 6 feet, stay away, social distancing. But I think you just do other things, as one gets older. I mean, you're not going to be the ingenue forever as much as you'd like to be, but you're not. And I think the character roles are actually more fun. And I think I really have kind of come into my own really by being the character. It was like I was on this YouTube series recently called Dared. It was from the book I Dared My Best Friend to Ruin My Life. And it got over 2 million hits or something like that. And yeah, it was really good. I was only in one episode, but the thing that was so much fun was I was such a comic relief compared. This was an 18 to 24-year-old really demographic. So I took all the 18 to 24-year-olds I could find, sure, come on, I could totally relate to them, which, was wonderful. But I could be the comic relief and just watch them and play with them and, have a good time. And so that was really, I mean, it's really fun. And then I just did 2 music videos. And I tell people, I said, I don't think there's a director out there in the music industry right now who's over 23. They're all just really in there. And one of the music videos, Play J, was I mean, they were all terrific, and I got to star in it, and I was a character, you know. And so that was really fun. And another one, I was a character, and Oreo was in it. And this is a really cute story because they really wanted Oreo to bark. And normally, if someone's, you know, like roller skating or skateboarding or whatever, he's going to bark. And, or if someone comes too close, he's going to bark. But somehow, that's why
I
they
know
say
where you're going.
they're animals. But somehow he bonded with the director. So when the director, it was time for him to really bark and go crazy, Oreo just looked at him. Oh,
Temperamental actor.
you
Temperamental.
know, it was like he goes, oh, you know, and so he goes, okay, we'll just shoot him looking cute, you know, and so he's in the video looking cute.
So,
But
Elaine, what is the secret for you for longevity in this business?
breathing. As long as you can breathe. Victoria Rao said it, I think, best, as long as you can stay in the game. And she just found a way, because I'm on her series, The Rich and the Ruthless. I play Fern. And she found a way to do a season 4. We won the first 2 seasons for Best Ensemble in a Comedy. And there isn't a person on the show that I don't absolutely love and adore. And she was doing videos during COVID as well. And she said, just stay in the game. And I think those are really wise words. And when you look at quarterbacks like some of the greats, Tom Brady, Joe Montana, any of those, they're in it for 4 quarters. You know, as long as there's 1 second left on the clock, they believe they can win. And I think you just have to stay in the game. But I think you do kind of have to diversify, you know, whether it's writing your own material, doing your own podcasts or webisodes or whatever. You just have to stay in the game and do something that's creative and makes you excited about doing it, you know. And I think, again, it comes back to, if you're having fun, I think people will have fun. But I think you have to kind of grow and change.
Absolutely. Now, I said at the beginning of the show that today marks 239 days since our theater shut down. What was your calendar like prior to March 12th of this year?
Well, it's really funny because I did a music video with Eminem. I did a movie, and the movie ended. The last day was March 11th for the movie, and it was supposed to have come out in July. And needless to say, they had theatrical release and everything. And that movie was so much fun because it was called Free Lunch Express. And it was kind of a spoof on Bernie Sanders. And I got to play Jane Sanders, his wife. But they kept it so top secret. I can't tell you a whole lot because they only sent us our pages. No, I don't think anybody read an entire script, you know? So, but it was such a fun movie. And I was really actually hoping Bernie would make it to the White House and that we'd have this screening, you know, at the White House. That was my dream.
Well, it may happen. You never know.
You know, you never know. But I think it'll probably be released before. Anything can happen.
So I'm always interested in how people are creating during this time. And so many people have embraced social media and home studios and all of that. What have you embraced and adopted during this the last 9 months? And what have you resisted?
Embraced a lot of food.
Me too.
But I did learn how to cook out of necessity, you know. So I did learn how to cook, and I started doing my own channel with Oreo, and so that was fun. And the book, really, you know, because I thought no one would believe this. You can't write this stuff, and so I wanted everyone to be able to write his or her own story. And I think the saddest thing is that you can't see your friends really. And if you do, you just sort of see them at a distance. And like Judy Tenuta lives right near where I go get my mail all the time, near the post office. And so I would go over and do drops with her. Here, here's some food, in case you need something. Because at first she was scared to death to go out, So it's like, here, we'll do a hub grub or something like that. Because I wasn't really afraid to go out, but I don't know. I just miss the normalcy. I miss the Hollywood Museum, especially because there were a lot of events there and you met so many people, and there were a group of people who came to almost everything, so they were family. And I think that's the thing about show business that I enjoy the most is the camaraderie and the family, and it's, when it's over, it's over. And some people you'll stay in touch with and others you may not see for a long time. But I think it's the closeness. And when you're on a set, the whole idea is there's one common goal. You want it to be good, and you want it to entertain. So I think everybody is on the same page. And I love that. So that's as close to coming to a team sport that I think I come.
Well, it is a team sport. I mean,
Yes.
what I love about this business is the sense of community. I love collaboration. I love working with other people. If I'm working on a project, I want their feedback. I have a rule of thumb when it comes to criticism. If it's going to help me, I want to hear it. If it's not going to help me, it's going to go in one ear and out the other. And if it's going to hurt me, why bother? There's no need to hurt anyone in this business. But, from the time that you first got your first commercial until now, what are some of the biggest changes that you've seen in the business that you like? And what are some of the biggest changes that you don't like and that you would love to have back?
Real auditions, because I am the worst. I'm the most technically challenged person in the world. And I think it works on both sides. I think when you walk into the room, they know if they like you, but you also know if you like them. Are these people you want to work with? I mean, I don't remember who said it, but they said, you've got choices too. You don't have to get every job or take every job. Make sure these are people you want to spend 10 or 12 hours a day with. And I think that's really important. But I just want to add one more thing to the things that you were saying about the criticism. I used to tell my kids, again, in skating, that don't beat yourself up. There are plenty of people who will do it for you.
That's right.
And so I think that's the biggest lesson of all, is to just try and be supportive, because what you or I might not like, someone else will embrace. And maybe it's just not for us, but there is an audience for them.
Carol
So
Channing,
I think you just have to be accepting.
Carol Channing once said, for every person who likes you, there are an equal number who don't. Get used to it.
Suck it up, kid.
Suck it up, kid. That's great. Now, I want to ask you, before we run out of time, how did Camp Elaine come about?
Well, actually, that was really funny because I was actually producing a show for somebody at Public Access, and I was producing it. It was a spiritual show, and I thought in person the guy was so great. Live, I go, you've got to get this out there to everybody, and he just couldn't do it. The minute the cameras came on, it was like, and so finally the people at the studio said, well, why don't you do your show? And I said, oh, okay. And so I wanted to do sports. So they had a time slot. They go, well, just come in. And so I did sports stuff and call-in shows. And I swear to God, I got recognized. I was standing in line at the SAG-AFTRA Federal Credit Union. And this guy goes, you were so funny and so good. And I just, I couldn't believe he was talking to me, And so finally we kind of got in line where we were kind of parallel, and he goes, no, I'm talking to you. And I go, what are you talking about? He goes, I saw your show Saturday, which is another thing. everybody watched public access, which was so much fun, and I wish that would come back because I think people are.
I loved it. There were so many characters that were involved.
Yes.
And I really also wish that we could go back to a time where we didn't have so many networks, so many channels.
Right now, I think there's almost too much information out there, too much content. I think it's overkill. I think that was the sad thing about coronavirus was that I know people wanted to stay active and wanted to stay in shape, exercising and doing everything. But I think it was like too much already, for so many people. And I think sometimes people just want to go to a movie or want to go to the theater and just relax and enjoy and be entertained, and sometimes that's just enough to spark someone and say, oh, what a great idea. I want to go home and write something or do something about it. And so I guess the normalcy, and I love the spirit. I love going on auditions and, seeing who's there and meeting new people, and hopefully you're working with them. I think that's really important.
Well, I want to ask, have you been on any sets at all since COVID-19 hit?
I have. I've done a couple of commercials. I've done a couple of music videos, and Victoria did a season 4 of The Rich and the Ruthless. So that was really fun. So I really enjoyed that, and it was so much fun. Some of the characters were kind of afraid to work during that time and chose not to do a season 4, but I was right there. I'll take my COVID test. That's the other thing that I think is really hard, though, for everybody now, is if you want to work. I've noticed that they want real, because it's so hard to get insurance, and they don't want to be sued. And if they need a family, they're trying to get as many real families. So if you don't have a real family, your chance of playing a mother, grandmother, whatever, sister, aunt, is kind of slight. So I think a lot of opportunity has been lost. And having to take the COVID tests and all the time, and people don't know, is it a false positive, a false negative, of whatever, or the annoyance of the test. But I think many people will go through it just so that they can work, because you want to work. I mean, once you're in this business, it's a whole different vibe of when they say, oh, people will just stay home, and no, they wanted to work. I believe everybody wanted to work. So I just hope that they can.
So what's next for you?
Good question. I'm going to hold up my book. Can they?
Yes, and again, it's here on the bottom of the screen.
Oh, good.
What's the best way for people to get your book?
Well, if they're on Facebook, they can direct message me, or they can go to Platzer, PLATZER.media/Elaine, and they can order it that way. I know some people are apprehensive to buy online, and they would rather just, so they can contact me directly on actually on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, and it's all at Elaine Ballace. And I think you have my name somewhere, ELAINE, and as in boy, ALLACE.
So I want you to send me the link, and we're going to get your book out there, and we're going to make it go viral. So wouldn't
that be great? But more importantly, I mean, I would love for it to go viral, but it's like I'm their cheerleader, cheering them on. I really want people to write this time in history, because hopefully we'll never have to go through it again.
Well, I want to ask you, who is your cheerleader?
I think Oreo. Wait, he came in just in time.
Oh, good.
Come here, Oreo. Come on, here, baby. Here he is. Here he is. Say hi to everybody.
What a cutie.
Isn't he?
What a cutie. Oh my God. God bless you both for having this. I can't believe this, but we are at the end of our show, and it just flew for me. I hope you had as much fun as I did.
Oh my gosh, I did. And you're not getting my feathered boa.
Oh, well, I want to, I'll have to create my own camp. I want to thank
Yes.
Rosa Puzo once again for making this suggestion because I've had so much fun. I want to
Me
thank all of you for being here tonight. You could have been anywhere else at home.
No, they couldn't. I told them they couldn't go anywhere else. They had to be here tonight.
They could have
had
been in
to-
another room doing something else, but I'm glad you're here. So if you had a good time tonight, and I hope you did, please go to my website, which is richardskipper.com. Sign my guest book with your thoughts about the show, because that helps to boost me in other markets. I also end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. So what I would like everyone to do tonight is I would like you to go to your Facebook friends list, go to the sixth name that pops up, and I want you to reach out to that person, and I want you to buy 2 copies of Elaine's book.
Yes.
Keep one for yourself, and then send one to the 6th friend on the list. Now,
Yes.
I'm going to do something that I haven't done in a long time. I'm taking the weekend off. But I will be back here on Monday night, and I want to let you know that my special guest is Miss Richfield 1981. And if you don't know anything about Miss Richfield 1981, you're going to want to be here because she is absolutely hysterical, has a great story. I can't wait to share her story. And it's been a thrill also for me to help share your story tonight, Elaine. So before we sign off, I'm giving you the final word. You can say anything about anything we've talked about tonight. You can say anything about anything we didn't talk about tonight that you wish that we had. Or you can just send a message out to everyone who's watching tonight. And this will be available after tonight on my YouTube channel, Richard Skipper Celebrates. Please subscribe if you don't mind. And I know you do, and I subscribe to you as well. And you can also go to Apple Podcast, and you can listen to the podcast of this show on your favorite podcast platform. And now, Elaine Ballace, you have the last word tonight.
I think kindness. I think kindness is something that we've kind of lost, and I think everyone needs to be kinder to one another and a little more supportive, and manners, just saying thank you. So I'm saying thank you to everybody who's listening, watching, and who participated, in this, because I think kindness and appreciation are 2 things that are being lost, and good manners. And I am grateful to you for having me. I'm grateful to Rose. And we also share another friend, Barbara Sickman. And she goes, I love and adore him. And she was saying, oh, I've got to get you on his show. And I go, I'm going to be on it. Watch. So I'm really appreciative to all the people who've reached out. I thank you so much for having me. And I am just delighted. I hope everyone had as much fun as I did.
Thank you so much. You're always worth celebrating. Love you.
Thank you.
Make it a better tomorrow. Good night, everybody.
Make it better tonight.
Yes.